over on the Extra Inch Patreon, we're able to do analysis videos that use match broadcast footage. Sometimes those videos will be on large, in-depth analysis of a team or a player that can go on for an hour or even more. And sometimes it can be on more focused and specific topics, which is what we're doing here. I want this to go on YouTube, and it's quite a lot harder than some make it seem to get match footage onto YouTube. So we're going to be using screenshots today, in the hope that we can get this out on a popular video forum that anyone can watch for free. So inverted wingbacks. Let's take a quick look. So this is all going to be from the recent game against Morecambe. This isn't the only game we've seen it in, but I think it is very much the same situation over and over again. So 4 minutes into the game, the ball's going to come over to Sessegnon. He's left-footed and he's on the left for the first half. Morecambe have rocked up with a 5-3-2. So here's your line of 5 in the back, 3 centre-backs and 2 wing-backs. And here's your midfield 3 very close to them in this deepest sort of defensive shape. A lot of the time with several players in the box throughout the 90 minutes. And they also have 2 forwards who are sort of off-screen, ready for counter-attacks, but aren't especially relevant to the defensive play here. So we'll leave this for now and we'll come back to this. So Sessegnon receives this ball. As he does, he takes the ball into himself and slightly infield. He's now closed down pretty tightly 1v1 by his opposite wing-back, and really the only option to him is to either try to beat his man 1v1, try to dribble him, or play the simple pass backwards, which is what he does. So he takes after the touch here, he then plays back to Ndombele. Similarly here, when he is able to get the cross off, we're going to see the ball's going to come over to him. You can see the 5 plus 3 shape here already. There's your 5, there's your 3. As it comes into him, so this is several minutes later. As it does come into him, he's going to attempt to get the cross off here. So this time it's sort of a sharper pass into him. So Morecambe are less deep as the pass is played. It's not a transitional play. This isn't a counter attack, but it is from sort of slightly faster build up, which is sort of a similar effect. So Morecambe are sort of backing off fast here. The ball comes out to him and he can take it into a more adventurous position. So he gets into the box here, but he's still 1v1 with his man. He's going to use his athleticism and his technical ability to get a small amount of separation. So he takes the ball towards the byline, and now he can shape for the cross. Now the Morecambe player is still there. He's not successfully blocking the cross, but he is massively restricting where it can go. Essentially, it can't go, or it would have to be a very impressively curved ball to go behind him, right? So this whole area is out of play. Anything to the near post, really the keeper can come and catch. So Sessegnon has to make this ball curl around the player who is attempting to block him, and it has to be to one of essentially 2 targets at the far post. And if the Morecambe centre-backs or far post wing-back can successfully defend this small amount of place with sort of 1 or 2 targets to deal with, which they repeatedly do in this game, then this is a sort of rather unthreatening cross. Individually, obviously this can then lead to a continuous series of attacks, but with this cross in isolation, you can see the effect that simultaneously having how many Morecambe players have we got in the box here? 6 Morecambe players against 4 Spurs targets in the box, and 1 player not necessarily always blocking the cross, but always making it difficult, undermines Spurs' ability to attack via the wing-backs in this game. So you have this situation where the wing-backs need to continually gain some variety of separation. Now here Sessegnon manages to get sort of half a yard of space, just enough to get the cross off. He doesn't cleanly beat his man. If you look at the 2 wing-backs in this game, so we have Matt Doherty, who is the the right footer in this game, plays right wing back for the first half, plays left wing back for the second half. Across his career, my hat's in the way, across his career, he has averaged 1.4 dribbles per 90. He's averaged 1.4 dribbles per 90, and he succeeded roughly half of them. So 0.7 successful, 0.7 unsuccessful, and then the player that we're focusing on here, simply because he had more volume so I could get more and better screenshots, Ryan Sessegnon, he has attempted 2 dribbles per 19 average across his career. Now some of that is a winger position, more so for Fulham. I think Matt Doherty might have had a couple of games at centre back in Ireland for there, or left back even, obviously relevant to this. But nonetheless, most of these minutes are in a sort of a similar position or a similar role for both of these players. Sessegnon averaging 2 dribbles per 90, and again succeeding at just under half of them. We can look at this game in particular as well, because it's one game in the FA Cup, 90 minutes. So in this particular game, Matt Doherty attempted 4 dribbles and was successful with 1, and Ryan Sessegnon attempted 6 dribbles and was successful with 3. So you can see how much emphasis there was and how much necessity there was for them to have sort of qualitative superiority against the player whose whole job was to shut down their attacks from the wide area. So we can take a look at a particular Sessegnon dribble. I don't know how many he is accredited here for exactly. What does and doesn't count as a dribble is probably quite a lot stricter than you might think. But this is still the first half. So left footer Sessegnon receives the ball over on the left flank here. And you can see, so actually before we continue with this shot, I'll go back to an earlier one. This is probably a good one. So again, you have your back 5, and it's the same in this other situation we're looking at, and you have your midfield 3, although we've only got 2 in the picture here. What this means is essentially is that this is the space that Morecambe are covering, right, wide, and then a bobble through the middle, which means the space, right, very simply, is here, is back the other way, is back the way you came, is the space in front of the wing backs, around the outside of the central midfielders, right? So again, we come back to where we are here. It's a similar situation, right? He's 1v1 with his opposite wing back. It's going to be busy in the middle. Central midfielders are defending the centre. They're there to block crosses and slow down the play of Lo Celso and Ndombele. The space is out over here, and Sessegnon's going to take advantage of that this time, despite being sort of on his natural side, you might call it. So he receives the ball back across the way it came. The wing-back's sort of not ready for that. There's maybe a pass here he could have made to Hill, who's being double marked, so he carries on with the ball inside, and you can see how Morecambe are immediately sort of torn apart by that. They don't really know what to do. They're all trying to avoid fouling him. They've got to prioritise blocking the goal. There's this big amount of space that Sessegnon's just driven straight through, and in the end he lays the pass off backwards for Lo Celso, who has a not great shot here. But you can see how once a good to sort of okay dribbler has some space that he can build momentum with. Okay, he's against not incredible opposition, but once he has that space to sort of begin his momentum with, once he's attacking from an angle that they aren't prepared for, because they prepared this game, is like, okay, you over here, you stop the cross, and then if you fail to stop the cross, make the cross difficult, and then we'll defend the cross, right? That's what they're here for. They're not here and ready for this, and so all of the body shape is like, you can see how every Morecambe player, their chest is towards their own corner flag, but maybe not quite so much the wing back here or the middle centre back, but that's the direction that Morecambe are defending. So they get wrong-footed by this inside dribble here, and it's one of the better attacks Spurs put up really all game. Okay, so we go back again. This time an even better build-up, a good build-up, unlike what we've seen mostly to this point in the game, 27 minutes. The wing-back is sort of more tucked in than he wants to be, at this point. So he has to get out across, and again, Sessegnon can drive into the box, and this is a good crossing opportunity. but because of how tightly defended it is in the middle, it's going to be hard to play any of the cutbacks. So really his two options are, it's going to be difficult, but maybe he can beat the keeper at the near post, or he's got one more option at the back post. So a slightly better play here, simply because Spurs have moved the ball better to him earlier in their build-up, and Morecambe are sort of slightly out of shape. I imagine this is probably a switch of the play, because you can see here how the far side wing-back, here his job is to defend Spurs wing-back Doherty at the far post. And so I imagine it's probably the same. So the ball's probably come over from the right-hand side of the pitch, where Morecambe's right wing-back has to defend Sessegnon as a target. The ball switched over quickly, and he's sort of slowed to get out. So this is one of the better plays with natural-sided wing-backs that happen in this game, but it's still not a great situation. You can see, again, there are a lot of Morecambe players in the box for not that many Spurs targets, and still, like, okay restriction from the near-side wing-back. So here's the second half. Immediately, we've still got sort of the graphics coming up telling us what the lineup is for the second half. Sessegnon is on the right as a left footer. Matt Doherty is behind the logo here. Matt Doherty is over on the left side as a right footer, right? So this is an inverted cross. So Morecambe players are backing off. He takes the ball back across himself. Another important element of the change in the second half is, yes, we're going to change up how we're attacking through our wing backs, but we're also going to support them, and we're going to just commit more players to the box. That is sort of the equal component here. So now, with the ball on his left foot, he has greater distance from his wing back, and I think he has more targets. Right now, he can maybe play the ground reverse through ball. I think it's to Lo Celso, or he can play a more traditional short cross to Lo Celso, or he's got Dele at the far post, or he's got Doherty beyond the far post for a head back across, and he can now also access the deeper targets in Heerlen and Dombele in front of the central centre backs here. The pass to his near side wide centre back in Tanganga is offside. You can see that with the ball on his left foot, he's opened up more targets, because again, even though Spurs have made the switch to inverted wing backs, the space the space is out here as if they're natural sided, right? So these guys, they defend the cross in the air. This guy, his job is to prevent a cross from coming in this kind of area, right? He's to prevent Sessegnon from getting to the byline. So as a result, here's the space. I mean, all tactics essentially come down to where's the space, but this is very much, oh look, this is the space that Morecambe are leaving open, right? They're keeping this is the most important part, they're keeping their central midfielders really narrow, right? I'm not sure which ones are technically midfielders in this situation. I think it's these three, right? These guys, their job is to stay narrow, stodge up the play through the middle of the pitch, and then defend the box from wide areas. Their job is not to come out and double up out wide. Okay, same thing again. A couple of minutes later, Sessegnon receives the ball wide right. He can take the ball back across where it came from. It does help that, again, the near side wide centre back in Tanganga is helping to create the space by occupying the wing back, but the wing back's priority remains Sessegnon. Again, their separation. This time there's not such great support from the rest of the Spurs players. They sort of weren't quite ready. So there's still the one pass, I think, back across here, and you can see how the near side wide centre back from Morecambe is sort of slightly out of position. So there's maybe a ground pass here, or, and again, this is just as important as all the other things, if he doesn't feel the pass is on, he's actually better shaped for the back pass, because he can immediately go to Lo Celso here, or he can immediately find Winks here, who could then perhaps potentially play, you know, another pass back across first time or whatever. Similarly importantly is to keep that near side wing back guessing. So on his third time receiving the ball here, Sessegnon dribbles it towards the byline and has a weak foot cross. It's not a great cross. It doesn't find the Spurs player. It's fairly easily defended. he gets sort of okay, again, like we saw early in the first half, sort of okay minimal separation from his wing back to find the space for the cross, but I think it doesn't go very far before it finds a Morecambe centre back. But the point is, it sort of keeps the wing back knowing he has to defend in two different directions, and when they have to defend, not just towards the byline but also towards the infield, that gives the dribbler a much better advantage. So Sessegnon, who's an okay, not great dribbler, can now better use his technical and athletic tools to send the wing back one way and then the other. And so that's what we see on the next play. This time he threatens. You can see his body shape here. He's threatening towards the byline. The wing back has to prioritize that, right? Because that's where the more dangerous play is. If Sessegnon was to fully round, as a really good dribbler would, fully round his wing back, get all the way to the byline, and then be able to cross from there, then he'd have a very advantageous position, because then he can go straight to a near post. Then it's harder to defend a further back ball. He could even chip over to the far post, right? That's a much more dangerous position. Morecambe continued to do a pretty good job of denying both wing backs access to the byline, but in sort of doubling down on that, they open up again, one more time, all of this space over here. And another thing you can notice is here we are 15 minutes into the second half, and now both the near side wide centre back, and it does help with Tanganga's supportive movement, and the near side central midfielder are starting to come over towards and double and even triple up on the threat from the wing back, and stop leaving their own wing back quite so isolated. So here he cuts back again, not a terrific support. Not terrific support from the Spurs attackers here, but because the near side wide centre back has come over, there is a potential movement to the near post, because that space is somewhat isolated. And then if that movement was supported by further Spurs players then arriving back post, then you can start to achieve actual overloads and really open up the space. Because even if Sessegnon's delivery is really good in the crosses that we've seen so far, and it isn't, but even if it was, it's still really hard for Spurs to take advantage of that. Now you're getting this sort of 2v3 situation out wide. You start to get more space in the middle. So in the end, Spurs don't actually create much from the inverted wing backs at all. But I think it's worthwhile looking at why decisions happen rather than just why goals happen and why chances happen. We did a video over on the Patreon, again, a much longer, an hour-long one, on how I think teams should defend against Conte. And a lot of that was about essentially matching up and playing a back five, or playing a 5-3-2, or playing a 3-4-3, matching Conte across the pitch. And that's kind of what Morecambe are getting towards here, right? With their sort of with their crowding of the middle and their 1v1 focus out wide, this is sort of a good way of slowing Conte's teams down if you're going to surrender all of that possession. Therefore, the inverted wing backs, right, the stronger manipulation of this space, and the same on the opposite flank of these spaces, is the sort of natural answer to the defensive situation that teams like Morecambe and more are putting up. Because again, we saw the same thing when Southampton dropped all the way off when they were down to 10 men. We started to see something similar from Watford. We played one? I think we played one inverted wing back in that game. So I think we're going to continue to see this more as more teams defend, park their bus, and I think we will eventually see some sort of more fruitful plays from the inverted wing backs too.